Let me ask you something. What if almost everything you've been taught about getting rich is pointing you in the wrong direction? Because getting rich isn't complicated. It's brutally simple. Most people just spend their entire lives following the wrong rules. They spend their entire lives believing that wealth is reserved for the lucky, the gifted, or the well-connected. They imagine hidden formulas, secret investment strategies, or exclusive circles where the rules are different. It feels easier to believe that money is complicated than to admit a far more uncomfortable truth. The hardest part about building wealth isn't understanding it. It's accepting what it demands. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you promised yourself that this month would be different? You'd save more, spend less, finally start that business idea, learn a valuable skill, invest instead of consuming. And then life happened. A weekend sale, a new phone, another subscription, a dinner you didn't need, a promotion that increased your income but somehow left you with even less money at the end of the month. It almost feels like the finish line keeps moving. But does it? Or have you been running in the wrong direction the entire time? This is where almost everyone gets trapped. People assume money is the goal. It isn't. Money is a result. The real game happens much earlier, in the decisions you make when nobody is watching. Long before a bank account grows, a mindset changes. Long before someone owns assets, they begin thinking differently about ownership. Long before financial freedom appears, daily behavior quietly shifts. That invisible transformation is what most people never notice. And because they never see it, they spend years chasing outcomes instead of changing the habits that create those outcomes. Inspired by Machiavellian thinking, there's an idea that remains surprisingly relevant today. Reality rewards those who understand how the world actually works, not how they wish it worked. That's uncomfortable, because it removes every convenient excuse. It means the difference between wealth and struggle often isn't information, it's behavior. Look around. Millions of intelligent people work incredibly hard every day. They wake up early, they stay late, they meet deadlines, they sacrifice weekends, yet many remain financially stressed year after year. If hard work alone created wealth, they would already be rich. Clearly, something else is happening, and that something hides in plain sight. Most people are taught to become excellent workers. Very few are taught to become excellent owners. Those sound similar, they are not. A worker asks, how can I earn more this month? An owner asks, what can I build that keeps producing value long after today's work is finished? One mindset trades time, the other builds leverage. That single distinction quietly separates entirely different financial futures. Think about two people starting with the same salary. One upgrades their lifestyle every time their income increases. A better apartment, a newer car, more expensive vacations. Nothing looks unreasonable on its own. The other person lives differently. Instead of upgrading appearances, they upgrade capabilities. They learn how businesses grow. They study negotiation. They build skills that create value. They buy assets before luxuries. 5 years later, they don't simply have different bank accounts. They have different lives. The gap wasn't created by luck. It was created by decisions repeated so consistently that they became identity. That's the part most people underestimate. Behavior isn't just something you do. Behavior becomes who you are, and who you become determines the opportunities you can even recognize. Pause for a second. What if getting rich isn't primarily about making more money? What if it's about becoming the type of person who naturally creates more value than they consume? That question changes everything, because once your identity changes, your decisions begin changing automatically. You stop buying things to impress people you'll never meet again. You stop confusing income with wealth. You stop believing that looking successful is the same as becoming successful. Instead, your attention shifts toward ownership, toward patience, toward leverage, toward freedom. And that's where this investigation really begins. Because once you understand why so many intelligent people stay financially stuck despite working harder than ever, you'll realize something that feels almost impossible at first. Getting rich was never designed to be complicated. It was designed to test whether you could consistently choose long-term freedom over short-term comfort. And that test is happening every single day, often in decisions so small they barely seem important. Until you understand what happens next, it's easy to believe the problem is money. The reality runs much deeper. It starts with the way we think. The uncomfortable truth is that most people never lose the wealth game because they lack intelligence. They lose because they're playing a game they never stop to question. From childhood, almost every system around us teaches the same formula. Study hard, get good grades, find a stable job, work for 40 years, save what you can, retire someday. At first glance, it sounds reasonable, and for many people it provides a comfortable life. But comfort and wealth are not the same thing. That's where the misunderstanding begins. The dangerous part is that the system isn't necessarily lying to you. It's simply preparing you for a different objective. Think about it. Schools teach mathematics, but rarely teach capital allocation. They teach history, but rarely teach negotiation. They teach obedience, but rarely teach ownership. They reward correct answers more than original thinking. Again, none of this is evil, but it shapes the way people see the world. And eventually, the way people see the world becomes the way they make financial decisions. Have you noticed something? The average person spends years learning how to earn money, but almost no time learning how money actually behaves. That's like learning how to fill a bucket without noticing there's a hole in the bottom. Money doesn't disappear because people aren't smart. It disappears because every day, thousands of tiny decisions quietly pull it away. A streaming subscription that no longer gets used. Food deliveries because cooking feels inconvenient. Monthly payments on things that were exciting for only a week. Impulse purchases that promise confidence but deliver clutter. None of these choices seem dangerous. Individually, they're almost invisible. Collectively, they become a financial identity. This is why wealth is rarely destroyed in one dramatic moment. It erodes slowly, quietly, almost politely. And by the time someone notices, they believe inflation, bad luck, or the economy is entirely responsible. But reality is often more uncomfortable than that. Inspired by Machiavellian thinking, there's a recurring lesson that still applies today. People who understand incentives understand power. Most people focus on appearances. Strategic thinkers focus on incentives. Ask yourself this. Why does nearly every advertisement encourage immediate gratification? Why does every social platform reward constant comparison? Why is status almost always associated with buying instead of building? Because consumption is profitable, ownership takes patience, and patience is difficult to sell. The modern economy constantly encourages speed. Buy now, upgrade now, finance now, celebrate now. Very little encourages waiting. Very little rewards restraint. Yet restraint is where wealth quietly begins. Think about two neighbors. One receives a salary increase and immediately upgrades everything. A newer SUV appears in the driveway. Designer clothes replace perfectly functional ones. Weekend spending quietly doubles. From the outside, it looks like success. Across the street, another neighbor receives the same raise. Nothing changes. Their car remains the same. Their home looks ordinary. Friends quietly assume nothing improved. But behind closed doors, something very different is happening. The additional income purchases shares of productive businesses. It pays for new skills. It funds a side business. It creates another stream of income. One person upgraded their image. The other upgraded their future. 5 years later, the difference feels almost unfair. But it wasn't created overnight. It was built one invisible decision at a time. This changes everything. Because wealth rarely announces itself while it's being built. Debt does. Luxury does. Status does. Real wealth is surprisingly quiet. It's the business nobody notices. The investments nobody talks about, the discipline nobody applauds, the evenings spent learning while everyone else scrolls endlessly through their phones. People celebrate the visible reward. They ignore the invisible preparation. That's why so many believe successful people were simply lucky. Luck is easier to admire than discipline. It protects the ego. Because if success were only luck, nobody has to change. But if success is largely the result of repeated strategic decisions, then responsibility returns. And responsibility feels heavy. That's exactly why so many people avoid it. Machiavelli observed that power belongs to those who understand reality, rather than comforting illusions. Applied to modern wealth, the principle is remarkably simple. The market doesn't reward intentions, it rewards value. It doesn't care how badly someone wants financial freedom. It responds to what they consistently create. That's why two people can work equally hard while living completely different financial lives. One sells hours, the other builds assets. One spends to feel successful, the other builds until success becomes impossible to hide. Pause for a second. Which path sounds more difficult? Most people immediately choose the second. They're right. It is more difficult at the beginning. But here's the paradox almost nobody sees. The easy path gets harder every year. The difficult path gets easier every year. One compounds stress. The other compounds freedom. And once you truly understand that difference, you stop asking how to earn more money. You begin asking a far more powerful question. Who do I need to become so that wealth naturally follows me? Because that's where the real transformation begins. Most people believe wealth begins with money. It doesn't. Wealth begins with identity. That sounds abstract until you realize every financial decision you've made this year was made by the person you currently are. Think about it. Nobody wakes up planning to waste money. Nobody says, today I'll sabotage my future. Yet it happens every single day. Not because people lack intelligence, because identity quietly controls behavior. Someone who sees themselves as a consumer naturally looks for things to buy. Someone who sees themselves as an owner naturally looks for things to build. The external actions are different because the internal identity is different. This is why lasting wealth is never created by forcing yourself to follow better habits for a few weeks. It comes from becoming someone for whom those habits feel normal. Have you noticed how some people seem disciplined without trying? They don't constantly battle temptation. Their decisions appear effortless. That's because discipline eventually becomes identity. And identity requires far less willpower than constant motivation. Motivation fades, identity remains. Here's where psychology takes over. Every purchase you make sends a message to your brain. Every decision quietly answers one question. Who am I? Buy something simply to impress strangers, and you reinforce the identity of someone who needs external approval. Invest in a skill, and you reinforce the identity of someone who believes their future is worth building. Save money instead of spending it impulsively, and you reinforce the identity of someone who values tomorrow more than today. Over time, these tiny decisions stop feeling like decisions. They become your default operating system. That's why two people with the same income can end up living completely different lives. One keeps asking, what can I afford? The other asks, what will this decision cost me 5 years from now? The first question creates consumers. The second creates builders. Inspired by Machiavellian principles, strategic people understand that lasting power comes from controlling themselves before trying to control circumstances. Money works the same way. Financial control begins with self-control. If emotions dictate every spending decision, income alone won't create freedom. Imagine someone receives a surprise bonus at work. Within a week, the money is gone. A luxury watch, weekend trips, new furniture, celebration dinners. For a brief moment, they feel richer. A month later, nothing has changed. The excitement disappeared. The expenses remained. Now imagine someone else receives exactly the same bonus. Nobody notices anything different, Their lifestyle doesn't change. Instead, they quietly buy shares in productive businesses. They enroll in a course that improves a valuable skill. They purchase equipment that increases their ability to create value. From the outside, it looks boring. 5 years later, it looks brilliant. The difference wasn't the bonus. The difference was identity. One person believed money was meant to be displayed. The other believed money was a tool. Tools build, trophies decorate. Only one of them creates freedom. This sounds simple, because it is. But simple isn't the same as easy. Modern society constantly encourages the opposite behavior. Open social media, what do you see? Luxury vacations, designer clothes, new cars, expensive restaurants, perfect lifestyles. Almost nobody posts the years spent learning, the weekends invested into building, the failed businesses, the lonely nights studying while everyone else relaxed. People see the reward. They rarely see the price. That's why comparison becomes dangerous. You're comparing someone else's highlight reel to your own daily reality, and comparison almost always leads to consumption. People don't buy because they need something. They buy because they want to feel like someone. That's an expensive emotion. The truly wealthy understand something different. Identity isn't purchased. It's earned. Confidence isn't worn. It's built. Status isn't displayed. It's recognized by others naturally. Pause for a second. If every expensive symbol disappeared tomorrow, who would you still be? Would you still feel successful? Would you still respect yourself? Would your knowledge remain? Would your skills remain? Would your ability to create value remain? Those questions reveal whether your identity is built on possessions or on capability. Capability compounds. Possessions depreciate. That's one of the quietest truths about wealth. The richest people in the world rarely rely on a single source of confidence. Their confidence comes from knowing they can create value repeatedly. Take Warren Buffett as an example. His greatest asset was never the billions attached to his name. It was the ability to evaluate businesses rationally, remain patient, and make disciplined decisions decade after decade. The money followed those abilities, not the other way around. The same pattern appears again and again. Sam Walton built systems. Charlie Munger built judgment. Naval Ravikant built leverage through knowledge and ownership. Different industries, different personalities, the same underlying identity. They weren't chasing money. They became people capable of producing extraordinary value. Money simply became the byproduct. There's another trap that catches almost everyone. People wait until they have more money before acting differently. They say, when I earn more, I'll invest, I'll learn, I'll start, I'll become disciplined. But wealth doesn't usually begin after income changes. Income often changes after identity changes. Builders act before they feel ready. Owners learn before they're forced to. Strategic thinkers prepare before opportunities appear. That's why opportunity seems to find them more often. In reality, they've simply become the type of people who can recognize it. And once that transformation begins, the rules of the game start looking completely different. Because getting rich isn't about finding a secret. It's about becoming someone who no longer needs one. The moment people begin earning more money, they often believe they've solved the wealth problem. In reality, they've only reached the next stage. Making money and keeping money require completely different ways of thinking. One depends on effort, the other depends on judgment. That's why history is filled with people who earned fortunes only to lose them. Not because they suddenly forgot how to make money, because they never learned how to protect it. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how quickly a raise stops feeling like a raise? A few months pass. Expenses quietly expand. A better apartment suddenly feels necessary. A luxury car becomes reasonable. Dinner at expensive restaurants turns into a weekly habit instead of a celebration. Happens. Lifestyle inflation arrives politely. It whispers instead of shouting. And before long, the extra income that once felt life-changing has disappeared into a more expensive version of the same life. This is where psychology quietly defeats mathematics. Money doesn't disappear because numbers changed. It disappears because identity never did. Someone who still seeks validation through possessions will always find a reason to spend more, no matter how much they earn. Someone who values freedom above appearance begins asking a different question. What does this purchase give me tomorrow? Not next week, not next month, years from now. That single question filters almost every financial decision. Inspired by Machiavellian principles, long-term power belongs to those who protect what they've built just as carefully as they build it. The same principle applies to wealth. Building without protecting eventually becomes rebuilding, and rebuilding is always more expensive. Imagine two entrepreneurs who each build a successful business. The first celebrates every milestone with larger expenses, luxury offices, status symbols, a lifestyle designed to prove success. The second grows more cautiously. They strengthen cash reserves, diversify income, protect assets, prepare for uncertainty. From the outside, the first appears wealthier. During difficult times, the second often proves stronger. That's the difference between looking powerful and becoming resilient. One depends on attention, the other depends on preparation. History repeatedly shows that economic conditions change, industries evolve, technology reshapes entire markets. No strategy guarantees perfect outcomes. What increases resilience is the ability to adapt, continue learning, and avoid becoming dependent on a single path. The people who thrive over decades are rarely those who predict everything correctly. They're the ones who keep building the skills, judgment, and flexibility to respond when the world changes. That's why the greatest investment isn't a stock, or a business, or even real estate. It's your ability to keep creating value regardless of circumstances. Skills travel, judgment compounds, character survives failure. Those assets can't be taken away by a market correction. Pause for a second. If every material possession disappeared tomorrow, what would still remain? Would your knowledge remain? Would your discipline remain? Would people still trust you? Would you still know how to solve valuable problems? If the answer is yes, you're already building real wealth. Because wealth has never been measured only by what sits in a bank account. It's measured by your capacity to create value again and again. That's the difference between having money and becoming wealthy. Money can disappear. Capability rarely does. This is why so many extraordinary builders think beyond immediate rewards. They don't simply ask, how much can I earn this year? They ask, what can I build that still matters 20 years from now? That shift changes every decision. Businesses become systems instead of paychecks. Investments become partners instead of lottery tickets. Learning becomes an ongoing advantage instead of something that ended after school. Even failure changes meaning. It stops being proof that you're incapable. It becomes information, feedback, another step toward better judgment. Perhaps the greatest misunderstanding about wealth is believing it's the destination. It isn't. Wealth is a tool that can buy comfort, a tool that can buy opportunity. Most importantly, a tool that can buy time. Time to choose your work, time to spend with people who matter, time to pursue ideas without constant financial pressure. That's a different definition of success than the one many people grow up with. It's quieter, less visible, yet often far more meaningful. So here's the question that matters. Years from now, when people look at your life, what will they actually see? Someone who spent decades earning money only to spend it, or someone who quietly built freedom while everyone else was distracted by appearances? Because that's the strange thing about wealth. By the time it becomes obvious to everyone else, the real work was finished years earlier. Every disciplined decision, every investment, every skill you chose to develop, every luxury you delayed, every moment you chose ownership over consumption. None of those choices looked extraordinary on the day you made them. Together, they became your future, and that's the part most people never understand. Money doesn't transform people, it reveals them. It magnifies the habits, beliefs, and decisions they've been repeating all along. That's why getting rich was never really about money. It was about becoming the kind of person who naturally creates value, protects it, and allows time to multiply it. The wealth simply arrives later. Inspired by Machiavellian thinking, the greatest advantage isn't having more than everyone else. It's needing less approval from everyone else. Because once you stop performing success, you finally have the freedom to build it. If this documentary changed the way you think about wealth, strategy, or success, then there are many more timeless ideas waiting to be explored. Subscribe if you're interested in mastering the psychology behind lasting wealth and quiet power. And remember this: the people who look rich usually attract attention. The people who become rich quietly build a life that no longer depends on it.